morning. My name is Donna Fujioka, and on behalf of Pastor Teresa Soto, worship producer Vincent Rains, First Unitarian Crescendo Choir, my colleagues on the Journey Toward Wholeness Anti-Racism Transformation Team, and others on the worship team, welcome to worship service with First Unitarian Church of Oakland. Please turn your camera off while we begin our service and light our chalice and candles. This will allow us to begin with a quiet space. We will turn our cameras on to greet each other later in the service. Please note that we are recording this service, so if you don't want to be in the recording, please keep your camera turned off. And for best viewing experience, we recommend that you make certain you have the up-to-date version of the Zoom app on your computer.
Hello, my name is Noemi de Guzman, also a member of the Journey Toward Wholeness team. We are very glad to be here with you. First Unitarian Oakland is an intentionally multi-generational, multiracial, multicultural, inclusive, and anti-oppressive religious community. You are welcome here. If you're new to us or otherwise haven't done so before, we invite you to fill out our online guest connection card. You will see a link to it in the chat. We want to be able to support your exploration of what's available in our community and your participation in what interests you. Welcome. Before our JTW colleague Dennis Rowcliffe lights our chalice to mark the beginning of our worship service, I have a reminder. Today and every first Sunday monthly from 11:45 until 1:15 p.m., everyone is invited to join in the anti-racism discussion and practice gathering sponsored by Journey Toward Wholeness. This month, our congregation continues consideration of the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism. The 8th principle affirms and promotes journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Please visit the church calendar at uuoakland.org for information about other happenings and ways to connect. Dennis?
Good morning. As Stefan lights the chalice, I will read the chalice lighting words. You can read along with me, but please stay muted. We light this chalice today, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, in part as celebration of COVID-19 vaccines that bring us closer to being together in person, and we commit to health and safety for everyone, leaving no one behind. And now the Black Lives Matter candle lighting. We light this candle in recognition of the Black Lives Matter movement and of the systemic racism that tries to deny the full humanity of Black people and commit to dismantling it with daily action. And now the third candle in our sequence, the peace candle, which is recently added liturgical element to hold the grief of police violence against Black people and gun violence in schools and more. After at least 77 people were shot in Chicago last weekend, community organizations gathered in the South Shore neighborhood Tuesday to call for police and urge the neighborhood to help stop violence. Jamail Cole, the founder of My Block, My Hood, My City, said, "We need to increase public safety. We need high-paying jobs driving wages. We need affordable housing. We need publicly funded mental health services, man." Thank you, Stefan. And now I want to introduce Janet McFarland, another member of Journey Toward Wholeness. Janet has a reading for us.
From the Widening the Circle of Concern study guide of the UUA Commission on Institutional Change, a call to worship written by Viola Abbott. Toward a place of wholeness. We are Unitarian Universalists. When we lift up our 7 principles, some of us think of them as a form of theology, but they are more important to our collective than that. They do not tell us what we should believe. They tell us how we should be. They tell us how we should act in the larger world and with each other. We are brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalism has fallen short of the image that was presented to the world, and to many of those who embraced this religion. But we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course to move toward a place of wholeness, a place that perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road to today, but we are here today because we are mindful of that past and because we have hope for the future. We want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of its promise. Open your hearts. Seek new ways of understanding. Come, let us worship together. And now we'll have a song. Please mute your microphones and we will all sing hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, led by the First Unitarian Church of Oakland Chancel Choir.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, whoever you're leaving, cause is no caravan, lover is 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 leaving, cause is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Good morning, church. My name is Kathyrn, and I'm one of your worship associates this morning. Now is the time in the service to unmute your microphones, turn your cameras on as we greet our beloved community.
Morning, everyone.
Hi,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Johnny.
Good to see you at
Beyssa.
virtual church.
Good morning, all.
Hello,
morning.
hello.
Hi, Judith.
Morning.
Hello.
Claudine and
Leslie.
Anthony.
Claudine,
Mary.
Anthony.
Good morning, Helen. Good morning, Carol. Good morning, Leslie.
Everybody. Marilyn. Oh my gosh.
Helen.
MJ.
Hey,
Mary.
Corliss.
Judith.
Helen.
Hi, Judith.
Meredith, MJ.
Hello, Amy.
Dick.
Hello, Dick, Carlos.
Evelyn,
Hi.
Sheridan, Ron.
Hi, MJ.
I'm bringing purple too.
Leslie.
That's page 2.
Hello,
MJ.
hello.
Hi, Ron.
Welcome all.
Hello, everybody.
So glad to have you all here today. Welcome. If you could please turn off your camera again and mute your microphones. It is my joy today to welcome our guest speaker, Chaplain Beyssa Buil. Beyssa is an endorsed humanist, chaplain, and celebrant, spiritual director, and anti-racism coach and writer. We are so honored to welcome her back to First Unitarian Church of Oakland to worship with us today, beginning with a wisdom story.
Today's wisdom story will transcend time and space. It is a conversation between a voice of the past and present. Frederick Douglass, abolitionist, gave a speech on July 5th, 1852. What to the slave is the 4th of July? It will present some discomfort and painful truths. Please be mindful when listening to this and allow the discomfort to lead you to inquiry and to working on dismantling systemic oppression that arises inside and outside of you. What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you, this day, rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty and unholy license, your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder, he said. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. Now we shift to the present day voice of Rayla D. Matson, who serves as the Director of Religious Education for the Unitarian Society of Hartford and Connecticut. And the story shifts. While attending a protest with my kids, we were standing around waiting for the marching to begin. My middle child asked me, what were we doing? Meaning, what were we waiting for in that moment? And when were things going to begin? My youngest, who was just beginning to gain some words, piped up, "We're marching," with as much enthusiasm as she could muster. When my mom marched in the 1960s, she not only marched for herself and others, she also marched for the kids and the grandkids she might one day have. She believed that the sit-ins and protests would give her future family an equality she didn't have. She didn't realize that we, her descendants, would one day march for those same rights. Mom was saddened when I took my children to the protest. She felt like she had let us down and that all her protesting and sit-ins and refusing to sit at the back of the bus were all for nothing. Why did she do all of that for us when we're still protesting for those same rights she protested for all those years ago? I often wonder about how or if things have really changed. I know that things are different, but inequality's head is still reared in many ways. I wonder if my children will take my grandchildren to march and protest for same rights I protest over today. Will things change and look different, but still be there? Will I, like my mother, lament over failed efforts to bring about equity and justice? At what point does true change take effect? For me, the answer is that people of color and other marginalized people can't just want things to be different. It has to be everyone doing this work, no matter how uncomfortable or mundane or monotonous. It has to be everyone wanting things to be different for everyone. I marched so that my children and grandchildren would have equality. Anita E. Baldwin. As we close, we read Rayla's prayer to invoke this work. Great Spirit of life, may we live a life that is not in vain. May our works and deeds have meaning. May the path that our ancestors tread, that we follow and lead for others, lead to true equity and justice.
Thank you, Beyssa. For the benefit of those of you who do not yet know me, my name is Dan Wright. I'm a 30-year member here at First Unitarian Church of Oakland, and I'm currently serving as the Vice President of the Board of Trustees. I'm a former member of the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Team, sometimes referred to as JTW, and I'm currently serving as the board liaison to JTW. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak today. As someone born in the United States, I've always been sympathetic to people suffering hardships because of US immigration policy and practice. But I recently had an experience that shifted how I think about and feel about social justice issues related to immigration. I'm a member of the La Peña Community Chorus. While we were planning our recent trip to Cuba, a fellow member and good friend who has been a legal resident of the United States now for over 40 years made an announcement. They would be unable to go with us on the trip because of the very real possibility that if they were to travel with us, upon our return, they might be barred from re-entering the United States, simply because of their status as a green card holder rather than as a citizen. All of a sudden, it felt clear to me, immigration isn't their issue. It's our issue. It's my issue. Having grown up in a multiracial church community, I've always felt that racism and white supremacy are my issues. It harms my family. I became a Unitarian Universalist in 1991. There's much in the UU principles that speak to me, and a yearning for equity and justice in this particular community that convinced me that I wanted it as my chosen family when I moved here with my wife and daughter. But it seems to me that as a religious community, we're not very good at looking inward, at recognizing and dealing with the oppressions that we ourselves suffer in our own community, oppression of our own making. I've always felt this dissonance around the UU principle of the inherent worth and dignity of every person because we spend more effort on social justice programs helping others than we do on creating justice and equity here for ourselves. In this community, some of us suffer the pain and indignities of microaggressions and, yes, racial oppression here in our own gatherings. Am I so insensitive to the suffering of those in my own chosen family? What does that mean for the health of my community? Sometimes I become quite sad pondering why so few people take a deep interest in the Journey Toward Wholeness transformation team. Why so few show up for the first Sunday for racial justice gatherings? Today, I'm actually here to share one thing. I believe that right now may be a pivotal moment in Unitarian Universalist history because we have an important opportunity and obligation to engage with this particular issue. Many of us are working to support the proposal to have the Unitarian Universalist Association discuss the possibility of drafting and adopting an eighth principle, which you heard Noemi read a draft of at the beginning of the service. This principle would strengthen our affirmation of the worth and dignity of every person, declaring that we value justice and equity in our own communities. This is, in my mind, largely what the eighth principle is about for me. I hope that all members of this community will want to further inform yourselves what it's about and to participate in coming opportunities to discuss the eighth principle together as a community. The Board of Trustees has unanimously voiced support for us to have these discussions and to vote as a community to encourage the Unitarian Universalist Association to discuss the adoption of an eighth principle. I believe that the future health of our UU faith rests upon our ability to create more justice, equity, and yes, freedom within our own religious communities. So I look forward to being with you for those discussions.
Thank you. I now invite you to remute your microphones and enjoy a performance by the First Unitarian Church of Oakland Virtual Crescendo Choir.
We shall
Every day there is suffering. The cries of the oppressed are constant. Sometimes the cries are loud, and sometimes the cries whisper. Today we send love, peace, and remembrance to the Indigenous people from Canada and the 600 unmarked graves at the Marieville Indian Residential School. We ask forgiveness on those who perpetrated these crimes against humanity and these individual lives. We also pause and send love, peace, and remembrance to those who lost their lives in the Surfside building collapse. We hold their family members with love. We send love to all the search and rescue crews that have come from all parts of the world to work tirelessly. And in particular, we lift up the first responders and send them much love and strength for their perseverance. Blessings and peace to all. As we celebrate the 4th of July, which is our nation's independence from being governed by oppressive laws and norms, instead, we recreated the dynamics and structures. Liberty and justice for all is still being fought for today. As we dismantle systems of oppression, we come together collectively to do the work of healing and working for our shared liberation. Let's imagine that if on July 4th, 1776, when the Declaration of Independence by the Continental Congress announced the political separation of the 13 North American colonies from Great Britain, the Founding Fathers had included all people. How would our society function and look like today? Would we be holding what seems like weekly vigils for Black and Brown Americans due to state-sanctioned violence? Would the endless mass shootings in our schools, places of work, and places of worship not occur? We have come to understand that those that came to America were escaping the exploitative and genocidal aspects of European colonialism. Many of these people were trying to find a place where they could lay down roots. However, the power structures created and embedded in religion and government recreated the very same systems they claimed to be running from. Instead, wealth was amassed at the cost of violence and harming the connection at being human. UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet released a landmark report that brings to light the global scope of police brutality against Black people and calls for transformative agendas to uproot systemic racism in the wake of the killing of George Floyd. Systemic racism extends far beyond US borders. It is a plague that threatens the lives and well-being of Black people on every continent. It is a significant first step for the UN to acknowledge global fault in police accountability for brutality against Black citizens and emphasize the importance of correcting it. She hopes that the Biden administration and Congress will work with the UN to create the systemic change that this country so desperately needs. Now, this is a very troubling plight. This is something that Black, Indigenous, and people of color have experienced and known for a very long time. And now, more and more and more and more people are waking up to see that we must all do the work in dismantling and ending oppression. Frederick Douglass, the famous abolitionist who was himself born into slavery, was invited by the ladies of Anti-Slavery Society in Rochester, New York, to give a 4th of July speech in 1852. However, Douglass opted to speak on July 5th instead, and you'll see why. Addressing an audience of about 600 people at the newly constructed Corinthian Hall, he started out acknowledging that the signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave and great men, and that the way they wanted the Republic to look was right in spirit. But he said, speaking more than a decade before slavery was ended nationally, a lot of work still needed to be done so that all citizens could enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The 4th of July celebrations of white Americans instead were the mournful wails of millions whose chains are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reached them. So what do we do now? What do we do now? As we acknowledge this painful truth, we reckon and take a moment of silence to send forgiveness to ancestors who participated in this treatment of others. In sending forgiveness and healing, we are able to heal and see the internalized biases we each carry. Let's take a moment to settle in our seats. And if you are able, please place your hand on your heart. If you're not able to do so, I want you to focus on the area of your heart and feel warmth or love coming through. If you do not feel anything, it is fine. It is fine as well. Just make the intention of focusing on this heart area. Next, I want you to take 3 cleansing breaths. And if any pictures of ancestors come through, I want you to picture white light or pink light being sent to them. I want you to feel love and forgiveness. As you continue breathing, feel this in your heart. If you want to take the next step, since we're all on mute, I invite you to whisper or shout, as long as you're muted, "I forgive you, be in peace. I forgive you, be in peace." I forgive you, be in peace. Now, you may put your hand down. Notice what feelings came up for you when you practiced that. Notice if any thoughts or stories came through. Later on today, when you have a chance, please write down any of these observations in a notebook so that you can continue doing this healing work when needed. Now, we understand that we are not actually bringing in any cells in the universe of invoking our ancestors. However, we do carry the DNA in our bodies. We do carry the DNA of our ancestors. We do carry their stories and their socializations. So it is important to send forgiveness and love to those parts of you that you bring that have biases, racist, and anti-Blackness triggerings. Mickey Scott Bay Jones from Faith Matters Network says that individuals who do not believe they have a personal narrative, who are unaware of their own history, ancestor, place, and character traits, are unable to productively interact with meta-narratives. Those who cannot wrestle with the contradictions and complexities of their own narrative will have and cause problems as well. There is a cognitive dissonance caused by holding on to the oppressive narratives given to us by larger Western imperial cultural stories And the task of liberation is learning to read the stories of self and others with complexity that may lead to editing and retelling of those stories. This is why we did this practice, this embodiment practice, because when we are able to get in contact with feelings that are inside, whether subconscious or conscious, we begin to do the process of healing emotional ties to systems of oppression. In doing the work of dismantling and healing internalized and externalized oppression, the purpose of focusing on spirituality, care, and healing is not so that we can create some sort of utopian community where trauma and pain cease to exist. We do not want to get caught up in spiritual bypassing, which is focusing on the spiritual to ignore the physical and material, which doesn't magically transform suffering and trauma into productive energy. Instead, we must acknowledge the pain and conditioning we have and become grounded in emotional healing. In participating in spiritual practice, mindfulness, things that create the moral and ethical discipline to be embodied as loving human beings, aware of our speech and actions to dismantle our participation in oppressive structures, to do our best to reduce future harm, heal our former harm, and collective create opportunities for healing the trauma we experience along the way. Each and every single one of you has taken up the mantle to do the work of creating a United States worth of a Declaration of Independence Day. Reverend Jim McGaw, Unitarian Universalist minister in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, says it best with his "Go in peace, seeking justice." When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in mindless oblivion. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go without challenging yourself or others. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go utter ease and comfort. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace, seeking justice. I mean go in peace, committed to equal rights and opportunities for all. When I say go in peace, I mean go in the peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity, deep compassion, and fierce, unrelenting love. May you go in peace.
Thank you, Chaplain Beyssa, for that dynamic sermon. It's so good to hear from you on these matters. Your message runs both deep and wide. I'm here to talk a little about church financing as it exists among all of us. One of the things I love about this church is all the subgroups and activities that happen among the members and friends of the church. It has always had a lively atmosphere with lots of opportunities for engagement, support groups, working groups, task forces, classes, meetups for activist marches and demonstrations, committees, and so on. In fact, your hard-working board of trustees is currently seeking another couple of people to join them, and you can self-nominate. If you didn't know about or belong to this church, you could find these same types of engagements and opportunities to join with others in the broader community somehow. But the church has a whole bunch of them under one roof, so to speak. which makes finding them easier and means that each of us can find, meet, and get to know each other in these various contexts. It's also a small enough place that each of us can have some positive influence on what happens within the groups in which we participate. The most important and valuable activity for me for the last 10 years or so is the anti-racism work that I've been involved in. That work and the people I've gotten to engage with on it have meant a lot to my personal redevelopment. Or is it remodeling? As most or all of you know, we offer a monthly anti-racism program, including one after today's service. And we could do more if we had more people sharing the planning, organizing, and other tasks. I find this so valuable that I would contribute financially to the church just to have this way of staying engaged. But of course, it's far from being the only benefit I derive from being a church member. I hope you are finding some of what you need here too. And if so, that you will contribute or continue contributing financially to support this valuable institution. There's a link in the chat here for your use in providing a one-time or recurring donation. And now, please stay muted, but say with me, if you will, the words on the screen. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we dedicate ourselves and these our offerings. Now, please continue to keep your microphones muted, and we will sing hymn 170 and see the Oakland Church Chancel Choir sing hymn 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
Gentle, angry people.
Today, beloveds, we came together to do the work of sending forgiveness to ancestors who may have oppressed others. We came today to do the intentional healing work in our bodies, our souls, in our DNA to release internalized socializations. We came as a community to do our part in intentional healing. Today, we came together because we know we will overcome. We know that all will overcome. Today, we did the work to overcome, lifting these intentions and holding the sacredness of life. May we go in peace.